Hi, Evan.
Hey Abraham, how's it going?
Everything's okay on this end. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really good. I'm enjoying our virtual spacious lighted backgrounds here.
Definitely, definitely.
Hey, Abraham, I'm pretty excited to have you here as a member of our Amplified Technology Collective. You've got an awful lot of experience to draw on in product management, not just from the side of typical product roadmaps and delivery, but also from a leadership and commercial perspective as well. So just before we get started, why don't you give me just a high level background of yourself and give us some perspective on you?
Yeah, sure. My product management career started in the US with a very large bank, and it was mostly catering to local councils and state governments. When I came over to Australia about 10 years ago, I started working for Virgin Australia and doing some customer engagement work for them, and then moved on to some e-commerce, and then eventually worked with a company called Equifax, which is a very highly regulated credit bureau for commercial and consumer. Then I went over to Telstra Purple, where I worked with the consulting arm and basically helped put together solutions that wrapped a lot of their consulting services out to the market along with the product.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so you would have seen a lot of pretty high level stuff. So I think I'm anticipating that a lot of leaders or executives sometimes ask, why do I even need a product manager? Or if they do feel the need, they're also asking, besides the rollout, how does this relate to tangible things like
Yep.
business or commercial risk or sort of go to market, that kind of thing. So why don't we start with that? I'll just toss it out. Tell us about risk and impact.
Yeah, sure. That's actually a really good place to start as far as product managers and what value they bring is they help reduce risk. And usually the first thing people think about is product risk, right? Is this product going to actually work? Is it going to do what it's meant to do? And are people going to use it? I like to think of it a little bit more nuanced with as three parts. So we have the market risk, which is the external risk, which you can measure in terms of market share, do you have any new customers, that sort of thing. And then you have the next layer above, which is your business risk. So this is the investment that the business puts up to get the product built, any revenue that's associated with that investment to start measuring returns, et cetera. So that's your internal risk. And those two layers then finally lead up to the actual product risk, which is, yes, melding those two risks together and everything that you've learned from it, but also executing on the actual product that needs to be built and all the subsequent features that make it up, and then continually tracking and optimizing that product. Because once you start building it, that's really, and release it into the market, that's really when the journey begins, because that's when you start getting real data on usage that you can then start to get back into the product.
Right. Okay. Well, that makes sense. So external market, internal business, and then product to sort of impact and measurement and execution, it sounds like.
That's right.
Yeah,
right.
Cool. All right. So tell me a bit more about market risk. How would you approach that in a real scenario?
Sure. The best way to illustrate that is through some work that I did with the Telstra Purple. They had a idea management SaaS platform. And so the intent was to figure out, okay, is anyone going to use it? Because they had deployed it internally and it was widely used across Telstra. But the question to answer was, will this be used externally? Can we actually sell this beyond our four walls? And so what I did was essentially start going with customers that we already had and start asking the questions, would this be of value to you? If you could increase customer engagement, if you could help your employees feel committed or a part of the journey of your particular company, where they could start engaging further and participating in ideas and discussions on strategy of that company, do you think that would be of value? And overwhelmingly, what we were able to conclude was the answer was yes. And even more so, it was across not just the telecommunications space, but across banking, building groups, lawyers, etc. Found a great uptake for that. So that was our first step, was figuring out whether there was an actual market appetite for this product. So once we confirmed it, that reduced our market risk.
Right, right. So that gets, at that point, you've got a demographic in mind. You've got at least a demand that you're fairly confident of. So how do you move from there to business risk? What do you look at there?
Yeah, good question. So from there, we move from the external risk, do we have a market for this, to the internal risk, the business risk. How much is this going to cost? Is this actually going to work? What's the addressable market? What's the, all these questions about what ends up being, when am I going to get a return on this investment? So a lot of factors come into play here. Once we understand what that minimal viable product looks like, there's a million things that we want to build, of course, but we have to contain that into a small package that actually works as a first run, if you will, into the market. We size up the effort of that with the team that you have available, and then through different ways of projecting effort, you come up with a number. This is going to take 2 months and whatever X amount of dollars to get built. And then from there, what you're demonstrating to the company is that that you have, this isn't you with your own personal opinion of what's going to work. You've already got validated information from the market, and then you've got validated information from your team on how much effort that's going to take to build.
Right. So the two things are coming together now. You've got an idea of what it will cost, and a pretty good idea now that it's going to be worth it because you've lined that up with the market opportunity and the demand there.
That's right.
I guess the last thing you mentioned was product risk. It seems to have something to do with analytics or ongoing measurement. Tell me about that.
Yes, that's right. So, once you've established that there's a market for it and that you can get this built with so much effort and time, now you have to build it, right? So you actually execute it. You've got lots of backlog items that you generate, and from those, you have to continually prioritize and finally get something released, which, as I mentioned before, really is only the beginning of the journey, because you can only do so much by thinking of scenarios and trying to accommodate what you think is going to be the perfect use of your product. Once it gets out into the real world, your customers are going to tell you exactly how that product is meant to be used. So that's when you need to start tracking all this sort of feedback, not just the feedback that they give you explicitly, but the feedback that you need to understand in the background. So this is in terms of measuring, how long do people stay on the page if it's a SaaS program, how much are they using a particular function, what's the drop-off rate, all these sort of metrics that you catch on to try to figure out, okay, are my customers getting the maximum value from this particular product? Yeah. So it's an ongoing, it's really a nice journey.
Yeah, it sounds cyclical too. It almost sounds like the measurement you make along the way to manage the product might also feed back into new market opportunities that you might uncover in that kind of surveying of usage or the lack thereof even. That's
right. And that's, for me, that's the beauty of it, because anytime you're thinking of releasing a product or enhancing a feature or what have you, it all rests with the customer, and it's the customer who uncovers these new ideas and new use cases that you would have never thought before. Even with a great team internally, all the great ideas come externally, and it's for you to determine, along with the other business priorities, what actually gets done first and second.
Yeah, wicked. That makes a heap of sense to me, and I'm sure it's making a lot of sense to the people who are watching now. Thanks, Abraham. That was excellent. And of course, everyone is going to be free to hit you up on your profile on our website. And as we put out more content, there's going to be plenty of opportunity for them to follow along this kind of series.
That's absolutely my pleasure.
As we go.
Terrific. Yeah, no, I can't wait. I can't wait. Look forward to it.
Have an awesome day, Abraham.
Thank you. You too, Evan.
See ya.
Bye.